Excessive contrast can easily be fixed by placing a reflector opposite the main light to fill in the shadow side of the subject's face. Inside homes, I prefer the Larson folding reflector because it's easy to get in and out of doorways. Now, unfortunately, this product is no longer available because the company is no longer in existence, but it shouldn't be hard to find a replacement product or to make something.
The window main light is making a good light pattern on the face. However, the opposite side is too dark. Using the reflector bounces light back and fills in wherever the window doesn't reach. Just be sure to keep the fill reflector as close to the camera as possible. You don't want its light to be coming from the side.
Just as with a main light, we want to keep a fill reflector as far forward as possible so that it fills in shadows from the front rather than creating a different light direction across from the main. A white reflector works great as a fill, but it needs to be close to the subject. Here, without fill, we have a deep shadow where the main light doesn't reach. The reflector bounces light back to fill in the shadows caused by the main or the key light. Inside a home, other factors usually determine which side I can place the fill reflector. But if the room has plenty of fill light, we can choose to place the fill on the same side as the main. I'll show why. Here's the reflector on the opposite side.
And here it is on the main light side. Without a fill reflector, the contrast in this situation is just a little high, but not excessive. Placing the reflector on this side fills in the eyes and nose, but without adding width to the body. I probably place the reflector on that side about half of the time. Whereas placing the fill reflector on the opposite side flattens the lighting. I would choose this placement though when I need a stronger fill to reduce excessive contrast, or if I can't get the reflector close enough.
Here's a close-up comparison of those three fill lighting images. I used window light for this guy, and a lamp for a warm background and accent. But he needs fill lighting for the shadow side of his face. If we put a reflector directly to the opposite side, we risk confusing the lighting with a secondary light direction. Putting the fill reflector on the main light side fixes that problem. This shows the comparison between the two fill reflector placements. And just a comparison to show the before and the final after. So what about using a gold reflector to warm up skin tones? I don't recommend it, especially for fill lighting, and I'll explain the reason.
This is why I don't like to use gold. Notice the two colors on her face. The gold is obviously from the reflector, but the blue is coming from a window. This duality of colors is the reason I avoid a reflector that alters the color of the reflected light. Whereas using a white, silver, or mirror side keeps the color consistent and easier to color correct.
This was something I did back in 1994 with a gold reflector and with film. Back in those days, the lab had a choice to color correct for the warm reflector light on her upper body, or the cool lower part of the image, or somewhere in between. None of those choices were optimal. Stay away from a gold reflector. We'll briefly step back outside for this point. Even with a white, silver, or mirror reflector, sometimes we still have to be watchful about mixing high blue skylight with low, warm reflected light. In the following examples, I reflected light from a setting sun back to a girl on the shady side of a barn.
As you can see here, the blue sky illuminated the high planes of her face, while the reflector on the ground sent warm light to the low planes of her face. So I used Photoshop to artwork those cool tones out of her face. Now, this isn't a terrible problem, but when you see her up close, that combination of colors is a little sickly looking. To avoid this problem, you'll either need to completely overpower the skylight, or a better solution would be to block that top blue light. We'll discuss blocking top light later. Let's go through the various fill lighting options. I started with a setup that had high contrast and required filling in. The first choice is to use a white reflector, as close to the camera axis as possible, but also close to the subject. A white reflector needs to be very close to the subject to be effective. My next choice would be a silver reflector. Being more directional, it can send more light to the subject from a farther distance, but at a cost of more specularity or shine on the face. Mirror-type reflectors are even more directional, but that isn't apparent here because all three reflectors were used very close to the subject. But normally, the mirror reflectors will be very strong and specular. What about fill reflector placement? Here I placed it too far to the side. That's undesirable because a fill device should fill in the shadows created by the main light. But here the face has valleys that a reflector too far to the right doesn't fill in. Putting the reflector even farther to the side better illustrates that problem. How high or low should the device be? Normally, level with the face is good, as it is here. If we place the reflector very low, we get a modified ghoul lighting, which is not good for a smiley image like this. But I asked her not to smile in this shot just to show that a low reflector can work if a more dramatic look is your goal, such as a sports image or a tougher look for a guy. The previous reflector placements were on the opposite side of the main light source. Here, I moved it directly below the face. The difference is that it narrows the face by leaving some of the shadow side a bit darker. Now I moved the reflector to the same side as the main light, to thin the face even further. The only parts of the face being filled are the parts visible to the front plane of the face on the same side as the main. This is useful when the eyes are deep and you want to thin a wide face. What about other colors other than white, silver, or mirror? One word: don't. A fill reflector, by definition, reaches the places that the main light doesn't. So those areas of the face will be a different color than the planes of the face lit by the main light, leading to difficult color correction issues. What about using flash as a fill? Well, in this particular case, because the main light was the blue sky, my flash was warmer, leading to a minor cross-color problem. So I used a blue gel to equal the outdoor blue sky. This keeps the color consistent across the image. I'm using my Larson 19-inch softbox here. And here it's just the raw flash with the blue gel as the fill. No softbox. The difference is that the light is harder. This means that any shadows by using an off-camera fill flash will be sharper, and shiny surfaces will be more specular. This is good for hair, but not usually for girls' faces. So there you have it, a summary of a variety of fill lighting methods.